Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
This here is a true story about crossing the pond at night in the world's smallest cockpit on the tanker through the weather. Oh, and to the tanker crew who did that, thanks a lot. We really appreciated that. I'm just kidding. No, I'm not. Well, there I was, crossing the pond, and you could see that I wasn't exactly fun.
So there I was, expecting the pilot-controlled lighting to come on, and no, not so much. Sticks and I were trying to pick up my mom. So it's a long story. My mom had broken her foot and she was depressed, and she's 200 miles from her only son who's in North America. And I said, I just joined the flying club. I gotten checked out on all the planes. I said, Mom, I'm going to come get you. We're going to bring you up, see your grandbabies. It's going to be great. Call Sticks. I say, Sticks, have I got a mission for you? We jump in the plane. This is in the height of DC flight control restriction madness. And so we are in a civilian aircraft. It's of course nighttime because all great aviation stories happen at night. What could possibly go wrong?
What could go wrong?
There's 10 inches of snow on the ground, which for a New Englander like Sticks is nothing, but in DC, it's like the apocalypse. And so we get into the DC flight restricted zone. We're going to Tipton Airport, which is right between Baltimore and DC. So no screwing around. Air traffic control is like, hey, what are you doing? Hey, what are you doing? Hey, what are you doing? Where are you going? Oh, we're going to Hey, where are you doing? And we're clicking the pilot controlled lighting and it won't come on. Now, my mother-in-law has picked up my mother. They are standing outside the field like goddamn Russian spies trying to escape during the Cold War. We can't get the lights to come on. So we have a brief conference as we're in orbiting the field, and we're like, well, what we're going to do is we buzz the runway at 50, 100 feet, slow speed, just to drive all the deer away, and then we'll come in and land. Short field landing, we pick up my mom, we take off, we're flying back to Atlantic City. It is an absolutely 100% gorgeous night. It is just crystal. You can see the lights of Atlantic City from 100 miles away, and my mom says, the airport seemed kind of dark, didn't it? Yeah. No shit, Mom.
I didn't do it.
Wasn't me. I've checked the statute of limitations on the FAA regs. We're good.
Yeah, now we're good.
So what kind of plane was that?
Piper Cherokee Aero, and it was fancy because it had GPS. This would have been like 2005. It was a little four-seater,
awesome.
about 4 hours of gas.
Well, that is how all great aviation tales begin. You're trying to get the lights on. Your mother-in-law is there with your mother. It couldn't get any worse. Greetings, everyone. Repeat here, coming to you from New Hampshire tonight. We've got not one, but count them, two special guests. Two, I love to say it, mud ducks. Two Coast Guard pilots with us tonight. And, of course, my co-host, Fig. Where are you tonight, sir?
Well, sir, I'm home for a few more hours in beautiful Kearney, Missouri.
Nice.
Before I go slip the Slurly bonds. Somebody's got to pay for all this shit.
Well, I guess you can't get your wife to go to work, so you're going to have to do it.
She's threatening to retire or something like that. So,
Dear God.
yeah,
That's just not fair.
I know it's not right.
Yeah. All
Does
right.
she really want to increase the amount of time she spends with you?
I don't know. I really don't know. I think she's got ulterior motives. But welcome to So There I Was, Deus!
Howdy.
Nice. Nice to have you, sir. Yeah, I teased it as Coast Guard pilot, attorney, and suspect. So we'll get into that story later as well.
For the record, it was my house, but we'll get to that later.
All right.
Go with that. He's sticking with that. That's his story, and he's stuck with it. That's all I can say. So, yeah.
Oh,
New Jersey.
no, really, I'm an attorney.
Yeah. So my question is, what were you thinking? How did you get interested in aviation? And that really isn't how you got into the Coast Guard, though. So you can go in that path too.
No,
It's a good
so-
story.
Yeah, I've listened to a couple of your shows, and there are a lot of people who are like, well, I was 8 years old and a barnstormer came by and I got to fly with the barnstormer and that was it. I wanted to do that. Or I was 12 years old and I decided the Naval Academy, I wanted to be. Yeah, I graduated law school in 99 and joined the Coast Guard because I'd done a bunch of different internships with a bunch of lawyers who hated their lives, except for an internship with the Coast Guard, where I met half a dozen just fantastic people who loved their jobs and cared about me, which was also unusual for an internship. So I applied to be a direct commission lawyer. If you remember that show, JAG?
Yeah.
Right.
Kristen
right.
Bell.
Kristen Bell and whatever that sexy pilot dude's name, and Bud.
Yeah.
Well, I was Bud. I was the direct commission, tripping over his feet. You're all standing around the elevator because the junior guy is supposed to get on first and the junior guy doesn't know he's the junior guy. Yeah, that was me. So I did that. But the weird thing about Coast Guard lawyers, like Marine lawyers, there's a couple of Marines in the crowd here.
Yeah.
Coast Guard lawyers are regular line officers and Coast Guard Marine lawyers. Here's a phrase you don't hear often. Coasties and Marine lawyers are similar in this way. They're both regular line officers. The Army and the Navy and the Air Force all have separate JAG Corps, which are almost like separate services. They're like micro armies where you compete for promotion with other lawyers and you compete for lawyer jobs. Coast Guard lawyers they compete with every other officer. And so the big career advice that everybody says is, get out of specialty. Do a non-lawyer tour. Get out of specialty. Go to Marine Safety. Get underway if you can. Go do something. Well, it turns out, you might not be aware of this, being a junior officer doesn't pay very well.
What?
No.
So, I know. Fig just dropped his monocle into his tea. So, what they do in the Coast Guard is they bring you in, and all the services bring you in at the O3 level so that you get a little more money. Whether that's a good idea or not is a debate for a different day because you got more on your shoulders than you got on your head. But they bring you in as a lieutenant. But what the Coast Guard figured out about 1996 is we could bring these guys in as O2s, as lieutenants junior grade. I don't know what the Marines call them, like bookshelves.
First lieutenant.
First lieutenant.
First lieutenant, right.
Yeah.
And so they could bring you in as a first lieutenant, first Louis, and they saved $300 a month because they don't have to pay you as much. So they brought me in as a JG, as lieutenant junior grade, as an O2. But as a JG, a message came out saying, hey, we're looking for O1s and O2s to apply for flight school. There's a lot of stuff I suck at in the world, but I'm a really good standardized test taker. So I take the aviation selection test battery, I get the prep book, I crush it, I'm in reasonably good health. They're like, oh, I guess we're going to send you to flight school. Turns out $300 a month takes a long time to pay down when you spend $2 million sending one jackass to flight school. So,
Weird.
yeah. So,
Okay, the Coast Guard accountants are having trouble keeping up here, apparently.
How? We
So
didn't think of that.
I put my package in, and my boss calls me into his office and says, my boss is a lawyer. He goes, you can't do this. You're a reservist. Because I didn't go to the academy, you get a reserve commission and a contract
Right.
to be on active duty. Yeah. And I say, well, actually, sir, here's the reference that says reservists on extended active duty are regular active duty officers. You treat them just the same. Well, you can't do this. You're a lawyer. And I said, well, actually, in the Coast Guard and the Marines are regular line officers, just like, and this would be being a jerk for anybody else, but he's a lawyer. I'm a lawyer. If you can't support your position, you shouldn't be a lawyer. So I go through all that. And at the end of about 3 or 4 of these, he goes, well, son of a bitch, I guess you can go. So I was supposed to be on a 4-year contract. I get to direct commission officer school, knife and fork school. I'm the Marines in the audience who have been to, how long is Marine OCS? Like 12 years?
Yeah.
It only seems
then-
like it.
And then the basic school, 5 weeks. 5 weeks. And on Tuesday of the first week, maybe it was Wednesday, we get our first set of uniforms and we're wearing shoulder boards. We're at the Coast Guard Academy. I made it a policy not to be outside between 7:45 and 0800 because all the cadets would come by and I was getting tennis elbow.
Yeah.
Like from the saluting.
Right.
So barely an officer, 5 weeks into it. But they bring out the contract, say, here's your contract, sign your contract. And I say, this is supposed to be a 4-year contract. He says, yeah. I say, well, this is a 2-year contract. He says, it's a 2-year contract that automatically extends when we get your bar results. I'm like, no, it isn't. It's a 2-year contract. I'm reading it. He goes, no, it's a 4-year contract. I go, look, dude, I don't know the Coast Guard, but I just went to law school. Like, I'm pretty sure this is a 2-year contract.
I could read a contract.
Right. So 2 years into it, they're like, well, you're on a 4-year contract. You can't go. And I'm like, no, I'm not. So their choices were, let me go to flight school, or I could walk out the door, walk into the recruiter's office and say, hey, I've already been accepted to flight school. Can I get a commission? So there I was in Pensacola, learning how to fly.
Outstanding. Talking your way into flight
Well,
school.
hold on, Deuce. What year was that?
2001. I was in API on September 11th, 2001.
Holy shit.
And
Okay.
API stands for?
Aviation pre-flight indoctrination, a couple
Thank
of weeks
you.
of academics, and I listened to Stick's episode, and he said, "Oh, I slept through it because I'd had engineering and I'd had this and I'd had that." I'm the opposite of that, but I did just finish law school, so my tolerance for hitting the books really high, and we've all been to Navy training. It's not that complicated. Right? Page 1. The objectives of this section are understand the 3 different, types of whatever. Page 2. The 3 different types of whatever are 1, 2, 3. Page 3. Quiz. What are the 3 types of whatever?
Deuce.
You've done this.
You said something, and I just want to make sure that we get it correct. When you were talking about ways to do your non-lawyer, well, I don't forget what you called it.
Out of specialty.
Out of specialty. Mm-hmm. One of the ways you said was get underway.
Correct.
I know what that means.
We all know what that means.
But tell the non-aviators and non-maritime people what get underway means.
So get a job on a cutter, on a Coast Guard cutter. Get out of the office and get underway on a ship. The Coast Guard's heart and soul is the cutter community, and it's so getting out there now. And the danger with lawyers is we bring you in so senior that by the time you're up for that tour, you're almost too senior to train. Right? The Coast Guard pushes responsibility down to a really low level. There are lieutenants and JGs in charge of significant stuff. So as a lieutenant, as a senior lieutenant lawyer, if you go to
which is your third rank as an officer for those who don't know the Coast Guard Navy ranks. So.
03, what the dirt services would call a captain, right? As an 03, as a senior 03, let me put it this way. I got underway when I was at the air station. When I was flying, I deployed on the back of a 270. One of the many awesome things about the Coast Guard, guess how long a 270 is? 270
I'm going to say 269 feet, 12 inches.
12 inches, exactly. So we get underway. At that point, I'm a senior lieutenant. I am the 4th most senior person on the boat. It's the captain, the XO, the other pilot, ops, me, the engineering officer, and then the rest of the wardroom. You get real senior real fast. So the challenge is to bring a lieutenant in and find a job that they can do with really no experience. Like, I didn't go to the academy. I didn't go to Kings Point. I went to I'm a University of Maryland graduate.
So, Deuce, are you still saying pointy end and square end and left and right and really screwing them on?
I try not to do that. But yes.
You're a lieutenant. Hey, where's the pointy end of this thing?
No,
That's awesome.
Kevin just casually, or Deuce just casually faked it in the background.
Absolutely. No, so I've always done very well by asking questions, except for when it bites me in the arse. Like, for example, I go up on I think they call it a bridge, on the pointy end, square end, white thing, and I'm standing there and I'm just kind of looking around, and what the hell are 11 people doing up here? Like, we're going to fly in an hour, and we're going to go farther than you're going to go all day. And it's going to be me and one other dude looking forward and a flight mechanic. Like, why are 9 of you here? That's actually not the right question to ask. The cutter community is very sensitive about that. This is probably a good time to say, these opinions are my own and not those of the Coast Guard or the Department of Homeland Security.
Yeah. Perfect segue.
In fact, our opinions often diverge, but that's okay. I am fairly familiar with the First Amendment, so that should be all right.
All right.
Which you give up when you join the Coast Guard. Am I not correct? When you're in the military and in uniform, you lose that First Amendment.
That's one of those sea lawyer things that people love to talk about, and then you go to mast, and during that break when the captain is like contemplating your sentence, his lawyer runs in and goes, "Sir, you cannot do this. Like, when this becomes a congressional, you are going to lose." And he goes, I'll find something else to get him for. So, yeah, it's out there.
All right.
Man.
Anyway.
All right. So you're at Pensacola. Then what?
Yeah, I'm at Pensacola 9/11, and I remember we were watching it unfold. I don't have any 9/11 stories except we're watching it unfold on the TV, and I called my wife from like a landline because it was 2001. She's home with our reasonably new baby, our 18-month-old, and I said, nothing's happening here, but I'm not going home until further notice. And she goes, "What happened?" And I say, "Turn on the TV, and I'll call you in an hour." And that's how that unfolded.
Wow.
Right.
So, but then what happened after 9/11, enough about national tragedy. Camera back on me. Is all the airlines, you remember there's a huge slowdown in the aviation industry. Right. All the airlines unhired everybody they'd offered a job to. So all those coasties, fixed-wing coasties, turned around and unresigned and said, "Hey, Officer Personnel Management, can I stay?" And they're like, "Well, we've only got $2 million worth of training in you. Yeah, you can stay." So all those guys unquit. So then this Coast Guard liaison officer realizes he's got more fixed-wing pilots than he needs and not enough helicopter pilots. We're always short on helicopter pilots. My plan was to go fly Falcon jets, HU-25, it looks like a business jet. If I said, picture a Learjet in your brain, you're close enough.
Yeah. Was it a Falcon 10 or a Falcon 20?
I never got that close.
All right.
It was a Falcon 10.
It was an F-jet.
See, Styx remembers these sorts of things. I'm just here to look
were
pretty.
hangar queens. Those were just absolutely terrible airplanes.
Hey,
half the time we needed them for cover.
The opinions of Styx may not reflect those of the United States government, the U.S. Coast Guard, or this podcast. Continue, sir.
After I got selected for flight school, I started pulling every new mishap message, and all I will say is I have somewhere a file of many messages where a Coast Guard Falcon had an electrical fire. Like, I'm not certain that their electronics were powered by AC, DC, or wood-burning stove, because those things. Anyway, so they're terrible. So my plan was Falcons, and then, I don't know, go do something else. So I went to Pensacola. Styx, HT-8 or HT-18?
HT-18.
For me, those are the two helicopter training squadrons in Pensacola, in Whiting Field.
Yeah.
And I attended neither of them.
Of course, because you didn't go to OCS or the academy either. You just showed up and you were a helicopter pilot, for Christ's sake.
Where did you go to helicopter school, counselor?
Bob's Roadside Helicopter Academy outside of Gulfport, Mississippi. I am making up nothing except the name. The school was awesome, but it was, Long Beach, Mississippi. They called me and they said, I'm getting ahead of myself, Fig. So the captain, 06 captain, Coast Guard liaison officer, best job in aviation, works in a lighthouse and nothing to do. Opinions do not represent those of the Coast Guard. But if the assignments officer is looking for somebody, best job in Coast Guard aviation, works in a lighthouse, just has 20 students to supervise, and they all want to be there. So calls me and says, hey, gets us all together and says, if you volunteer for helicopters, we will give you any duty station in the Coast Guard. You step up and say, I'll take helicopters over fixed wing, any duty station you want. And a colleague of mine who shall remain nameless stands up and says, you get me San Francisco and I'm your person. And he says, no. And she says, LA. And he says no. And she says anything on the West Coast. And he says not available. And we all sort of collectively as a group say, when you said any air station, what did you mean? And it turns out he meant Houston, New Orleans, Traverse City, Michigan, Miami, and Atlantic City. I had terrible grades, even among the group of 5 of us who got involuntary orders. And so I picked second. My friend Hayes got Traverse, and I got Atlantic City. I wanted New Orleans, but it turns out I had kids who were going to be entering elementary school, and New Orleans is a wonderful city, but does not have a great reputation for schools. And my wife presciently decided that maybe with the storms coming, New Orleans wasn't a good idea in the middle of hurricane season. But we'll get to that later.
Wait a minute, Deuce.
And just to be
You
clear,
said
hang on, I got to
something about
interrupt.
going
Just to
to-
be clear, one of the cohorts of this very show attended New Orleans public schools.
And wound up in the Marines.
Oh, there you go.
He didn't know both his parents. Neither did I. So, that's how we end up in the Marines.
Rumors as to
listen.
their marriage may or may not be true.
Deuce, you went to Corpus, right?
Correct. I winged out of Corpus in the multi-engine fixed-wing school. It was... I love Corpus. I love Corpus. Corpus is the best place in the world to have a flight school. I was there for 9 months. I landed on a runway other than 13 exactly one time. Like, it is winds out of the southeast and 20 knots. I don't know about the other 3 months of the year, but for 9 months, winds out of the southeast at 20 knots. It's the best place to have a flight school in my experience, which is very. I should say also, for all this crap I talk, I'm a 1,500 hour one tour. Like, you guys have had legends on here, and I am me. Like, I have no idea. I'm here to demonstrate to your audience that you don't have to be nasty. You don't have to be Royce Williams to contribute to the security of the United States and maybe help a dude out of a sinking boat. You can be just some dude who stumbled into some shit and is like, oh, I guess we're going to flying today.
Where did you go to helicopter training? Where was
So
that?
I went to this little. So I finish up in Corpus. I report to Atlantic City. I get a phone call. They said, we're sending you to a private helicopter school for 2 weeks. Because what they had been doing with people in my pipeline was sending them straight to what we call the T course, what you'd call the RAG, right? To learn your individual airframe. But it turns out 65 time is like $6,000 an hour. And teaching a dude to hover for 6 or 10 hours at $6,000 an hour, not a good use of money. So having already been burned financially by me once, they sent me to Bob's Roadside Helicopter Academy. It's this little school in, they called me up, they go, we need you to travel over Christmas. I go, oh, Christmas, really? I think it was like the day after Christmas I was supposed to leave. And he says, yeah, but you're going to Long Beach. Sweet. Long Beach, Mississippi. Damn it. I'm getting feed a little.
I am too.
We're getting some
Okay.
echo.
All right.
So
That's
I'm
probably
trying
me.
I'm trying to cancel echoes.
So I go to Long Beach, and it's a, for a private helicopter school, they've got half a dozen helicopters, Robinson 22s, a helicopter. Now, I'm not a big dude. I'm 5'10". At the time, I was probably about 200 pounds. We're not discussing any current numbers. The Robinson 22 is so small that I had to turn my shoulders sideways to close the door. And when we got both doors closed, it was plexiglass, shirt, meat, shirt, instructor's meet, shirt, plexiglass. Like, there was not an air gap. You could have transmitted Morse code by tapping through the entire helicopter. When you're taking half a bag of gas on something with 90-minute legs, like, you are maxed out. So I went there for 2 weeks and got 20 hours in the Robinson 22, which is as much fun as you can have, like, flying. It is absolutely a lawnmower with a really good windscreen. And did that for 2 weeks, and then went back to Atlantic City. Then went to the transition course to learn how to fly 65s. I'm one of the last pilots in the Coast Guard, not the last, but last crop of pilots in the Coast Guard to qualify in the 65 Alpha. The Atlantic City already had the Bravo. By the time I left, we had the Charlie, and now I think they're up to what, the Foxtrot or something, Echo. I mean, they've got I think they've got FLIR and a microwave and a rear-facing gun. They got all kinds of crazy stuff now. But we didn't have none of that back in my day. back in my day, we had manual fuel control, and it sucked. But yeah, so Bob's Roadside. So I was talking to the instructor, and I said to the instructor at the school, and by the way, if you're a military pilot who's never looked at the civilian pilot operator's handbook, do it, and you will realize, oh, these are terrible. So I'm at the school reading the pilot handbook, and the instructor comes by, and I'm talking to him, and I say, I mean, you guys are busy. Like you're hopping, you're really moving along. And he says, yeah. I said, well, don't the locals get mad? I mean, that's all this noise. He goes, well, it's in Robinson. It's not that loud. Like Atlantic City, we share an airport with F-16s, the ear-splitting roar of freedom, right?
Right.
So it's Robinson 22. Like it's not that loud. And this is a direct quote. I said, besides, if they get mad, they can just put the wheels on their house and move someplace else. Okay, that's fair.
Well,
that's fair.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Anyway, so Long Beach, Mississippi. So then Atlantic. So, but before I'd actually gone there, I'm in Atlantic City. I'm flying with ops, and the ops when we got there, Sticks. And I'm not supposed to be at the controls, right? I'm not because I'm unqualified. I'm not supposed to be. I can sit in the front because it's a single pilot aircraft, but I'm not supposed to be at the controls. But it's ops. Like you tell him he can't do it. So he says, "Hey, do you want to fly in the pattern?" And I'm coming right out of multi-engine fixed wing school, so I say, "Yeah, absolutely. Experience is good, and you're here and whatever." But like I wasn't expecting this. What speed do you want in the pattern? Like, what do you want coming over the threshold? And he goes, "Well, it's a helicopter. You want 0 over the numbers." I'm like, oh shit, right. This is going to be different. This is going to be different. So anyway, Atlantic City, the T course, the transition course down in Mobile, which was lovely, and then 65s in Atlantic City. Our AOR went from north of New York to just south of Washington D.C. And it was. You can't. New York City, it's a $500 helicopter tour, probably $1,000 helicopter tour now. Spanky's doing it. Spanky and Mako are doing it now. They're doing helo flights in New York City. DC, you can't even buy that flight. Like you can't buy the helicopter tour that we would do every other week for Homeland Security. Just amazing. I went down there, so I just reported. I just finished T course, and I'm down there, and I'm doing my area familiarization. I've probably met, I don't know, probably 3,000 people in my career in the Coast Guard. 2,997 of them just outstanding individuals, and 3 people who I just didn't get along with. And that's how nice we're going to be about that. And I'm flying with one of those guys, and he's just, he's rubbing me the wrong way, but I'm new and I'm not saying anything. But
look, Sticks left for a minute. Get on another computer. You can talk about him now.
You can talk about
oh, sweet. Oh, that guy. I watched his dog for a week, and he called me and said, I had no idea how messy my kids were until my dog left. So we're flying down in DC, and I'm from here. Like I grew up here, University of Maryland, Catholic University. Like I'm from here. My wife is from here, and he's pointing to stuff that fine. This is Route 95. I'm somewhat familiar with Route 95, and I'm looking at the chart, and that building's a good landmark. Yeah, that's the WSSC building that was way over budget, and they shouldn't have spent that much money on it. Right? And he gets to this point, and he says, "This is called G-Belt, and it's the entry place for this, and you can recognize it by this and this and this." And I just point and I go, "That's my high school." Like I used to hang out with my friends in the dugout there before school and tell jokes and whatever, like I think I'm going to be able to find this. Oh, look, there's the house my wife grew up in. Like I'm somewhat familiar with this area. I'm seeing it from a different angle, but I'm good. So yeah, flying in DC and all the landmarks and all the everything, which was cool because fast forward 3 years and we're doing the NCR Air Defense Mission, the National Capital Region Air Defense Mission. And I'm on my way out at this point, but they know I love DC and they know I know DC. So I'm doing all the area familiarization they're sending pilots temporary duty, TDY, to come and augment this mission because it just absorbs manpower, it just absorbs people. And so I'm doing all the all the area fams of DC. And I'm like, this is amazing. I love this stuff. So it worked out well for me.
Well, that's pretty awesome. That's pretty awesome.
So anyway, yeah, so Atlantic City.
That's fantastic.
All right, so tell us about some memorable
Do any rescues?
water rescues or rescues in general.
I think he might have been on the rescue.
The only thing I'm going to say about that, I'll say two things. And the first is people who deal with life and death in industries have gallows humor, and I don't think other people understand. And Styx has been in SAR and search and rescue, and then he's in medical. And it wasn't, but I'll say this. We stopped at a Navy base. Let's be charitable. We stopped at a Navy base for fuel. And it's a Navy base that's not an operational command, it's a test command. So their sense of urgency was a little less than maybe we might have liked. So it's 7:30 or 8 o'clock in the morning, because it was a first light search, if I remember correctly. We land, and we're like, we call them, hey, can we get fuel? Yeah. Because, of course, once you spent $2 million sending me to flight school, you want to save money where you can. So we're trying to buy government fuel instead of going and buying it on the economy. So we stop. And we land there for fuel, and they're like, oh, yeah, he's out doing a thing. He'll be here in a little bit. I'm like, dude, I got a person in the water. Like, get in the damn truck. Gas, helicopter, go.
Fuel truck over here, and let's get this airplane full of fuel.
Yeah,
Right.
Turns out civilians not motivated. That did not. No, I would never yell at someone like that, but I definitely felt a lack of urgency, and I could not convey like, hey man, active search and rescue case, there may be a dude treading water right now. So so that was a little frustrating, and I never went back there for fuel. So I should have known. Actually, on my cross country in Pensacola, we broke at that same Navy station for a long weekend. I spent a long weekend staring at a BOQ room because they couldn't fix a T-34 over the weekend. And so it turns out it was some warning switch. So you got to listen to the gear position indicator all the whole time. Anyway.
Okay.
So Atlantic City, DC, New York, Philadelphia. I'm not saying the Delaware River is nasty, but we had a policy of not putting a rescue swimmer in anywhere north of Wilmington. Like, we just wouldn't put a dude in the water for non-operational reasons. If you wanted a search and rescue demo, you were not getting a swimmer in the water. I don't know if we were worried about the refineries or the agriculture runoff, or that a body was going to bump into him, but either way, we weren't putting a swimmer in there. But yeah, it was a great time. And I'll tell you what, New Jersey, I'd only known North Jersey. South Jersey is farm country, blueberries, pine forests, just gorgeous. If you think New Jersey is Newark, there is a whole nother state out there. I loved it. And some great friends from there. Yeah. So duty standing pilot in Atlantic City. Search and rescue, fisheries enforcement. Fun thing to do in the fisheries industry. There's a huge scallop industry out there, right? Scallops,
Okay.
Scallops looks like a clam, but the edge is, ready, brace yourself, scalloped, right? But do you know what part of the scallop
That's where they
you
get
eat?
the name.
I know. See, it's humor and education. I'm lots of. So, but do you know what part of the scallop you eat?
There's no telling, Deuce.
Me neither, actually.
boy.
But it's a very
Lips
small
and-
part.
lips and
I think
a-holes?
it's
I don't know.
I think it's the muscle, probably. I think it's the muscle or something. It's some small part. Get Sticks back in there. He knows things. It's some small part. So the deal is, what you do is, here's what your scallop fisherman's career looks like, or day looks like. Put the dredge in, shuck scallops while you're dredging, pull the dredge out, empty the dredge, shuck scallops. That's your whole. You notice I didn't say sleeping. They take a lot of speed in the scallop industry. Now, they're not supposed to take a lot of speed, but they take a lot of speed. And when your heart rate gets above about 200, it looks like a heart attack. Shortness of breath, nausea, dizziness, the whole 9 yards. So we get a radio call. 27-year-old male in good shape, otherwise is having a heart attack. We jump into the helicopter, race out there. Well, the trick is, and where is Sticks? We need a medical person.
I know, right?
The trick is,
He'll get back.
stop taking speed, and your heart rate slows down. So
way.
we pick up these, I know. So we pick up these guys who are in, I don't know, cardiac danger. I'm not going to say a word because Sticks will come back and be like, oh no, what's happening with the heart is the air is being rammed down the co-pilot's.
The ventricular contraction of the.
Exactly.
So are these guys
Venturi
out on the
effect
boat
is
though? Deuce?
Yeah, these guys are way the hell out offshore.
Okay.
And so we go pick them up in cardiac failure, basically from too fast, right? If a pump runs too fast, it doesn't do anything.
Cavitate.
But by the time we land at the airport, they walk out of the helicopter. I'm like, it's a miracle. We don't have a paramedic on board. Like we have a basic EMT, and it's the back of a pickup truck, basically, like painted metal floor and, a couple of seatbelts. So how we work these medical miracles, it turns out the trick is for the whole flight back, he didn't take any speed. And so, away you go. Sticks, what's it called when your heart beats too fast? Why did we bring this guy? Cut his pants.
I don't know, right? Mike said,
So,
can
yeah,
you
that
hear
was-
us, Sticks? He came back.
He's back.
Yeah.
I can
You
see
can't hear
him, but
us.
not hearing. That's like the worst of both worlds.
At least he's not translucent anymore. That's kind of nice.
There's that. Exactly. All right.
Well, so you're telling me by the time you get them on the ground, their hearts slow down and they're cured.
And they're fine. Well, I'm not a doctor, but 27-year-olds who work in the maritime industry don't have heart attacks. You know what I mean? Like not without some outside influence. So we saved lives. We saved people from heart failure just by bringing them back to land.
If it were me, I'd guess like tachycardia or something like that. But just.
Well, listen,
Doesn't that sound right? That does sound right. He should be managed.
I'm not a medical professional, but I do know when you put somebody on a whirling shit can of death and fly them, when they get on the ground, they're willing to do anything just to stay alive at that point.
Yeah,
including fake not have a heart attack anymore.
That's right. My heart's fine now. Get me off this damn thing.
That heart, I'm good. Just get me off this death trap.
Maybe that's why they were running to the ambulance. I never thought of that. Dude jumps in a cab and peels away from the airport. I never thought of that. That's a good point.
Love it. So, for our audience, I don't think we've stated what kind of equipment this is. You were on the HH-65.
65
Dolphin.
Bravo Dolphin helicopter, a commercial product made by Aerospatiale, entirely of plastic.
Nice. Okay.
And one of the service-wide questions was like, where's the wood? What wooden parts are on a 65? And it's like the tongue depressors in the first aid kit or some crazy thing. And entirely made of plastic. And when I had it, we had a hydromechanical disaster of an fuel control system that would just occasionally roll back the fuel on you. So you'd be flying a perfectly good aircraft, perfectly beautiful day, everything's fine, and one engine would just roll down to 10%. You're like,
That's fun.
That's not ideal. Yeah, it only happened to me once, and I was lucky. Like I got out of aviation before it got boring or I got hurt, and so we were doing just night pattern work. Just Kevin's the new guy. Practice landing at night, and so we're practicing. Okay, Deuce, land on the numbers again. Try and hit the center line this time, and we land, and it's fine. And it wasn't, for the record, you jackalopes, it wasn't a hard landing. It was perfectly soft and fine. And I was with Bay, if you remember, Sticks. So I'd have heard about it if the landing wasn't ideal. This, a very exacting instructor pilot of our acquaintance. And so I landed and I looked and it was all, what were they called? Gosh, candy stripe lights? Those vertical chiclets. It was all chiclet lights, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so it was
Okay.
2 and 2 and 2 and 2 and 2 and 2 and 2. Except I look at it and it's in double space. 1 and 1 and 1 and 1 and 1. And I'm going, why is there no extra lights here? These seem like fewer lights than before. I'm not a sophisticated pilot, but I can tell when the cockpit gets dimmer. And he looks and goes, uh-oh. And I was like, oh, that's not a good sign. And we got to ride back in another helicopter.
Uh-oh. Hold on. This is a helicopter pilot just said, uh-oh.
So it was I got lucky. It only happened to me on the deck. The risk was there, right?
Okay.
Sticks knows. So helicopters make their money in the hover, right? And forgive me, your fellow hoverers.
We are indeed.
I don't know, like helicopters are unnatural, and what you do is a sin against God. So,
You said it like it's a bad thing.
I didn't say that. Some of the best times of my life have been sins.
I don't know if this is a so there I was interview, or I'm watching brilliant stand-up comedy. I don't give a shit one way or the other, Deuce, because you're awesome. Keep going.
This is great, dude.
So helicopters make their money in the hover, right? That's why you go through all this trouble to be able to go zero, is to be able to hover. Well, hovering below about 20 feet, if anything bad happens, you just land. I mean, you got the stroking seat and the whatever, and I don't know, I think other aircraft have this. The 65, if you hit the ground at 600 feet per minute or more, the lights come on. That's kind of the design max. Like if you got to report a landing above 600 feet per minute. And I'll tell you right now, I should have said this earlier. I am a shining example that we have gotten so smart about training and systems and proficiency. You can take the Navy, for all my trouble in Pensacola, those guys could teach they could teach a Labrador to fly. Like if they got me through flight school, they could teach a golden retriever, a motivated golden retriever, but a golden retriever to fly. So
you're saying
Piece of cake.
Piece of cake, absolutely. Like, no, I'm not saying it was easy. I'm just saying they can do it. They could get you there. I mean, you got to remember, this is the organization that produced 10,000 pilots in World War II, and those guys were not. They didn't say we're only taking.
A lot of them
people
actually
with a
survived.
yeah, many, hundreds of survivors. Totally lost my train of thought. So we're
Sorry.
No, I have no idea. I have no idea where he's going with this. I totally lost it. Anyway, so I'm a shining example that those guys can teach a Labrador to fly if they can get me through it. I actually went to flight school. I went to flight school with Tommy, and Tommy was another coastie, and Tommy was struggling. I mean, he was redoing flights. He was getting yelled at. He was struggling. And I remember thinking, as long as they don't kick Tommy out, I'm probably safe. And I'm at my winging with Tommy. And Tommy comes up to me and he says, this whole time I just kept looking at you. I know it's struggling. I thought, as long as I don't kick Deuce out, I'm probably safe.
You were looking at each other.
Absolutely.
Oh, that's awesome.
Oh, that poor bastard. He's
Deuce, you kind of sidestepped us here a while back, and you went off on a tangent. Were you involved in the rescue?
We're not. Yeah, but we're not.
We're not going to talk about that.
We're not
talking about that.
Just wasn't urgent, is all he would say.
All right.
They tried to go.
It wasn't. It was.
All right.
And the thing is, and this is true, and it is. I think if you are considering a career in search and rescue or emergency services, one of my many mentors, instructor pilots, just fantastic people I had the opportunity to work with, said to me early on, stay peed. But the other thing he said to me was, because the SAR alarm goes off the second you have to go to the bathroom. But the second thing he said to me was,
stay peed. I couldn't figure out what the hell you said. Stay peed. In other words, keep an empty bladder.
Keep an empty bladder.
Keep an empty bladder.
And God
doing
forbid you show up to duty. You show up to duty with gastrointestinal distress. You are going to have the SAR night, the search and rescue night of your life. So,
Boy.
But the other thing he said is, there are people out there who don't need your help. They get picked up by a Good Samaritan. They weren't ever missing to start with. Our
probably
SAR
easier to find them.
Well, our SAR controllers found a lot of guys at bars. They had all the phone numbers, all the local bars, and you'd get a phone call.
Right.
Yeah, my husband is out fishing and he's overdue. Yes, ma'am, we'll get somebody looking on him right away. And he'd call about 6 bars. What marina did he leave from? Okay. Hey, this is the Coast Guard. Is Bill there? I'm not screwing around. I'm about to launch a helicopter. Bill, are you? Oh, yeah, okay. Bill, get home before I have to launch a helicopter to find you. So, but there are people who don't need your help.
Uh-oh. Sticks is talking.
Sticks is saying something, and we are not.
We are not hearing you, Sticks.
Yeah, you need to go into settings and check your mic settings and make sure you select the right mic. And then in the meantime, while he's doing that, that's great. That's outstanding. So, but talking about, there's a couple things. We started talking a little bit about SAR, and you had some amazing rescues in New Orleans. And we'll
Correct.
get to that. But the other thing I want to ask you to chat about, if you would, is one night where you were carrying was it a Little Mermaid umbrella? And you and Sticks wound up in the back of a police cruiser.
All right. So let me preface this story with saying we just celebrated our 25th wedding anniversary, and I still love her very much, and she still likes me, apparently. That said, that weekend, my wife had left town and taken both sets of keys with her. I had done, I don't know, I biked to work or some stupid thing. I can't remember. But
And then
she
called
had
the
gone-
cops and asked them to check on the house frequently. And if they saw anybody.
Well, we lived in a small, everything in New Jersey is by township. Everything in New Jersey is by township. And we lived in a small town with 5,000, 7,000 people in this town, 36 full-time police officers. They had nothing to do. This is the nicest neighborhood I've ever lived in my life. We bought the cheapest house in this neighborhood. 6 months later, a guy bought we bought the second cheapest house. 6 months later, a guy bought the cheapest house, knocked it down and built a mansion. This is the nicest neighborhood I've ever lived in my life. But we're right on a busy street. So I'm at work. It's the end of a duty day and I'm tired and Sticks drives me home. Now, Sticks obviously grew up in a nicer neighborhood than me because I grew up in Prince George's County, Maryland, and there was a difficult relationship between teenagers and the police in Prince George's County, Maryland in the 80s and 90s. And that's all we're going to say about that because some of my friends are I'm back in that county and I got to live here. Let's just say policing has, they're doing very well now. And I'm very proud of my neighbors who are Prince George's finest. Back in the day, there were improvements. There was room for improvement. So I am circumspect in my interactions with the police. We roll up to the house. All the doors are locked for some reason. I have no idea why. We're not like door lockers. It's a really nice neighborhood. But fortunately, I had stopped by the hardware store because I was fixing the house up and I bought a little sledgehammer. And we had a window that was still a plywood window. Like the glass had broken in a previous owner and it's still a plywood window, or the window hadn't been installed. So we try all the windows, try all the doors. We walk around the house, nothing. And then I say, no problem. And I go in and I pop out the plywood window and I climb into the basement and I go out and it's raining, of course, because it's always raining. And I come out and the only umbrella I can find, we're all tired. And he drove me home. Like he's waiting to go home. And why was your son in the car? You couldn't have come off of duty. It must have been the end of like a work day. It must have been Friday afternoon, because you picked up your son from daycare or something, because his son was in the car. And his son is great, and I love his son. His son's an adult now, and I love him as if he was one of my own. He's a great kid. He had some stuff going on at that age. We all do. So he's strapped into a car seat in the back of the car, because he's like 2 years old. And Sticks is, maybe he's 4. He's as overprotective a parent as you could ever hope to meet. So I come around the corner. It's a privacy fence, 6-foot privacy fence. I come around the corner with the hammer in my hand and this little pink princess umbrella, one of those pop-up like mini Mary Poppins umbrellas. It's clear. I am looking like the picture of, I don't know, either meth or madness. And so I come out of the gate and I go, I got in, I got the door open. At least the cops aren't here. Well, 2 of those statements were true. I had gotten in, I had gotten the door open, but the police had arrived. Now, fine, no problem. It's my house. Like, this is not a problem. It's my house. But I'd only been there a year or something. So he says, do you have any ID? I said, this is my house. Do you have any ID? Yes, I have a Florida driver's license with a Texas address on it. So immediately he thinks Russian spy. But don't worry about it, because what you do when you interact with the police is you pull out your military ID, because this says 2 things. This is my identity and I have a job. You know what I mean? Like, I'm one of the good guys. Like, I'm probably not a professional car thief because, I've got a full-time job. And so I pull up my military ID. He has no idea what he's looking at. He looks at it like I clearly printed this on my home printer. It's a DD1 back in the day, right? The
Right,
green
yep,
one.
yep, right.
I clearly printed this on my home printer and laminated it at the house of some scrapbooker of my acquaintance. No idea. So he says, do you have any other ID? I pull out my Florida driver's license with my Texas address on it. He thinks, clearly spy. By the way, the only car in the parking lot with these 2 dudes, the only car in the parking lot is an SUV with Oregon tags and dark tinted windows. So he says, hey, you need to sit in the back of the car so I can kind of get control of the situation. And Sticks says, I don't want to do that. My son's in the car. And I'm like, get in the car, Sticks. And he's like, I don't want to do that. And the cop's like, get in the car, Sticks. And I'm like, oh, this is great. The little boy's going to watch his father get his ass kicked by the police. It's such a magical moment in a young man's life. Fortunately, another officer showed up because it turns out when you've got 36 full-time cops, there's somebody else on duty at that time, and they were able to interview us individually and confirm, yes, in fact, it is my house. And everybody went away, and nobody got to meet Mr. Nightstick. But yeah, it was a magical moment. And that umbrella, I don't know what happened to it, but it ought to be in a museum somewhere because it was almost witness to a mishap. Let's just put it that way, to a mishap.
Oh, that's awesome. Hello, fellow aviation adventurers. As we feel the summer breeze slowly making way for the cool embrace of fall, let's chat about something that's going to be your secret weapon this season. HelloFresh. My journey with HelloFresh began while navigating the skies of culinary exploration last Christmas. A gift landed on my doorstep, HelloFresh. The first mission? Pulled pork tacos with mango salsa. I'll admit I had my altitude set low on expectations. Tacos with mango? Yet by the end of the meal, my taste buds soared to new heights. The delightful burst of flavors charted a course I hadn't seen coming. And from that surprising gustatory flight, I've been a loyal co-pilot with HelloFresh. But let's circle back to how HelloFresh can elevate your culinary flights this fall. Chart your course, pick your delivery date, and relax at a cruising altitude knowing that exciting meals are on the radar. And to my fellow pilots juggling the back-to-school air traffic, let HelloFresh guide you safely with pre-portioned meals delivered straight to your hangar. Ready for a culinary ascent that'll take your taste buds to the stratosphere? Here's your flight plan. Go to HelloFresh.com/50, so there I was, and use code 50, so there I was, for 50% off, plus free shipping. That's right, aviators, set your navigational tools to HelloFresh.com/50, so there I was, and use that code 50, so there I was, to soar high with a fantastic half off and free shipping offer. Landing this conversation, HelloFresh is America's #1 meal kit. Clear skies and happy dining. Oh.
Yeah, those meal delivery services are nice and all, but if you want eating but no pooping, MREs. That's the way to do it.
Yeah. Oh, you got that right.
Oh, that's the way to put it up against the sponsor. Yep.
Boy.
Oh, man. Love it. Absolutely love it. Sticks, are you back with us? We've seen your face here for about 2 or 3 minutes, but I think he is going to have to do sign language, it looks like. Yeah, I can't read lips.
You, bro.
Oh, dude.
It's sad. It's sad.
Find a microphone, my friend. Anyway. All right.
He's working it. I've seen him throw 2 of them now.
I know.
He chucked one headset, pulled another one out. He's chucked that.
Right.
We worked with a guy named the Bison, and the Bison's natural speaking voice was so loud, we didn't tell him the new code for the intercom. He'd just pick up the handset and be like, now for the information of all hands, and we'd just hear him all over the air station. There will be a pilot's meeting. So you got to channel your inner Bison, Sticks. Where are you?
Right. Just shout out the window, brother. We're here. Oh, boy. Amazing. All right. So I teased it a little bit before the break, though. But so one significant event in life, you were in flight school during 9/11. Mm-hmm. And then another fairly defining moment for most of the country, even though it truly affected a small portion of the country, was Hurricane Katrina in the summer of, it was August or September of 2005?
End of August, early September 2005. And it was, and again, I am the guy who picked up the phone. It was a mess. From a Coast Guard perspective, I am proof that Coast Guard training can put any qualified person downrange. I'm the guy who picked up the phone. It is Borg and Mike and Spanky and Mako and Greg and Irvin, all these people who just absolutely put me in a position to do something really cool. And I am a testament to their professionalism and their ability to put lipstick on a pig. I mean, just flight suit and helmet and away you go. So, but yeah, so we went down there. We got a call Sunday night. I want to say, oh gosh, it was a minute or two ago. I got a call Sunday night. When you show up to work at 8, try and be on time and bring everything for being away for some time. How long? No idea. Where are you going? New Orleans. What are we doing? Don't know. Okay. And so it was me and Nizro went down there, and Troy and Josh. Troy's the flight mechanic and Josh was the rescue swimmer.
Okay.
And Nizro's the aircraft commander. I was actually the co-pilot. I was first pilot at that time. I don't know how the rest of the world does it, but the Coast Guard co-pilot, graduated from flight school, qualified in the aircraft. If the pilot has a heart attack, you can probably land the aircraft without killing the entire crew, and maybe we'll be able to use it again. First pilot, you're qualified to sign for the plane, but not for the mission. So you can go out and do maintenance runs, engineering test flights. If you need to get an aircraft from one place to another, you and a flight mechanic can take the aircraft out. Aircraft commander, that's the job. You're the senior duty officer. You're in charge of, you can agree to the mission. You can do the whole mama jama. So I was the first pilot. Nizra's the aircraft commander. And we got a call. So it turns out, and this may come as a shock to you jet guys, helicopters are incredibly slow. So what we did to get...
we know.
How is it
That's like saying the sun's incredibly hot, right?
We know.
Sun is hot. Sun is hot. The Pope goes to church a lot for an old guy. Anyway, so what they did, and understand that at one point, 10% of the entire Coast Guard was in New Orleans. Literally every air station sent people, aircraft, equipment, something to New Orleans. And they were stripping the Coast Guard stores for parts, because we flew the crap out of those aircraft, for a week.
Right.
For weeks and weeks. So what they did was they got a crew to fly a helicopter to Werner Robins, because they wanted our helicopter. They wanted helicopters. We had the Charlie model, which had full authority digital engine control and much better looking pilots, the whole 9 yards. Okay. So they flew a 65 much Charlie down to Werner Robins. We got on a Falcon, which surprisingly didn't catch on fire, and flew down to meet them. And then we took the helicopter from Werner Robins to Mobile. And then we flew.
That took about a week, right?
Yeah, we're not there yet, actually. So the nice thing about going that slow, no jet lag. So, but we got down to Mobile and flew. I did the math: 23 hours and 4 days. Like, we flew our asses off, and just it was a I don't. Words fail me. I've been thinking about this for 18 years and words fail me. It was apocalyptic. It was a glimpse. I'm a big history buff. I worked with the Coast Guard historian for a couple of years. I love history. I love the stories. And you see, it was a glimpse into that world. You see these like pictures from World War I where just the landscape is destroyed as far as the eye can see. And you get over the Gulf Coast after New Orleans, and it was just apocalyptic. We flew over a subdivision where it was just slabs. Just all that was left was the slabs where the houses used to be. Because the way a hurricane works, it rotates, oh gosh, I'm going to get this wrong, counterclockwise in the northern hemisphere. So Katrina made landfall just east of New Orleans. Please, 6 pound, 8 ounce baby Jesus, let me remember the details right. And so New Orleans got the rain because the bands of the storm sat over New Orleans and just dumped 10 inches of rain on the city. But you got higher winds, higher than average winds are on the east side of the storm, because they've got the speed of the storm, the speed of rotation, and the wind speed. So that part of Alabama just got destroyed.
It was literally the perfect storm.
Yeah. It was amazing. Yeah. Just the amount of damage in trees and houses. I mean, you'd see the foundation of a house with a yacht in it. I mean, it was just insane how much damage there was. So we went down there. We showed up at night, and they said, we're just kind of self-launching. And that's, culturally, that's the Coast Guard. Like, the Coast Guard search and rescue missions, granddaddy is the life-saving service. The life-saving service was a dozen dudes in a boat, in a boat with oars at Hatteras or Cape Cod, it was incredibly local control. There was no central control. Yeah, that's New Orleans. I took that picture. That's New Orleans under 3 feet of water. The Coast Guard deals with flooding all the time. There are groups of outstanding coasties who do inland rescue all the time, and they've got special punt boats that they can take into no water. Shut up. They deal with this all the time in the upper Midwest, and even you get any place there's a valley, if you get a lot of rain, you get a lot of flooding. And these guys are professionals, and they are absolute heroes. The thing about New Orleans is it's already below sea level. So when the levee fails, it's underwater. I think that's I-10. That picture you're looking at now is I-10, which is raised up. And so we did a couple of rescues off of I-10 because that's where people could stand. That's where you could be and not be in the water, and where you could land.
Yeah, in fact, I think that's the I-10, I-12 junction, because I see a Y off of there. But I could be wrong. But yeah, that stuff is terrifying. So for the vast majority of the audience who is listening, you can go to sothereIwas.us/rumble and see this interview as it was recorded. And I am presenting some pictures that Deus sent us and putting them up now for everyone to see, to include some bug guts. That bug doesn't have the guts to do that again on the fire in the Mississippi. I sent this one up because it's, you think, oh, the city's underwater. Well, first off, that's Lake Pontchartrain that just drained into New Orleans. Yeah. That water is gross. I know exactly one person who's ever admitted to swimming in Lake Pontchartrain, and he was sick for a week afterwards. But then think about what's in New Orleans. It's chemical factories and refineries. And look, I love the city of New Orleans. I love it with all my heart, the history and the music. I'm not a go to downtown and get hammered kind of guy. That's never been my thing, and it's certainly not my thing at this age. But I love the city. I love it, love it, love it, love it, love it. Just for all the food and art and culture and history, I love all that stuff. It's gross. Let's be honest. When you've seen a rat the size of a spaniel swimming through the water like hooper-dooper-dur, here we go. The city is gross, and it is gross, and they just rinsed it out and left the pool there to sit because the levees failed, and there's no place to drain. You had to pump all that water out of there. Yeah, and when the power went out, the pumps went out, and couldn't do it anymore, and the city makes its own gravy.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, that's so nasty. It was a raging debate among the rescue
because it's true.
You got to get Josh on here because he was a swimmer in Katrina and then later went to flight school, so he'll have some perspective. Nice. But the swimmers down there had this raging debate because we all have dry suits for cold water ops. We all have dry suits with the seal around the neck. It literally keeps you dry because in 60-degree water you have about 10 minutes before you lose consciousness and drown. Which is, if you're in a Coast Guard helicopter and you stick it in the water, who's coming for you, right? Like, you're the Coast Guard. We got to bring somebody from someplace else. You are the guy, right? It's like when the firehouse catches on fire. Turns out the fire trucks aren't that close. The next set. So they were debating. They're like, well, we should wear dry suits just to keep us safe from this stew. But it's New Orleans at the end of August, early September. If you put on a dry suit for half an hour, you are going to die of heat stroke. Yeah.
Yes.
So they had a raging debate, and there's a picture in there. I love this picture. I didn't realize it until years later, and I was reading something about the storm. It's of our swimmer going down on the hook.
Okay. Oh, let me find it.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
If you look, he's wearing his flight helmet, his shorty wetsuit, and hiking boots. Because what they figured out is their little booties that they were wearing, they didn't wear their flippers because they weren't swimming that much, but they're little boots that go with there we go. He's going down to the water treatment plant. He's wearing hiking boots because their booties were just getting shredded. So they all just put on whatever heavy shoes they could find.
Neoprene shoes, not so sturdy.
Yeah. No, not so much. So that's Josh going down to pick up these 4 guys out of a water treatment plant. They were the storm crew. Like, you water treatment plant, you're going to have a storm crew, but they'd never seen it this bad. We're flying by. So we all had land survival class, right? Yeah. What piece of survival equipment can be seen from up to 50 miles away?
The mirror, baby.
The mirror. That little stupid index card sized mirror with a hole in it if you hit it just right, 50 miles. These guys took the mirror off the bathroom wall
You probably,
Summertime.
No
Now,
kidding.
here's
probably
the
melted your retinas with that thing.
Here's the thing. A hurricane sucks up all the moisture for hundreds of miles in every direction. It's such a low pressure system. So the weather after the hurricane is clear blue and 22. It's gorgeous. These guys pulled a mirror off the bathroom wall and it was like getting hit with the bat signal. They faded parts of my flight suit. Like I had a tan under my chin after these guys were done. We will come pick you up. Please, you're fading the paint. Like, it was
For the love of
amazing.
God, stop signaling us.
Please. We'll do whatever you want. You can have the helicopter. You can fly it home. Just turn the lights off. It's the middle of the day and I'm going blind. Vampires in space are dying. It was amazing. But do you have the picture of the blue building?
I think I do, yeah.
Do you guys have audio on me yet?
Yes,
There
we
we
got you there,
go.
Sticks.
Okay,
Welcome
all
back,
right.
my friend.
Welcome back.
That was painful. So that sounds like Archimedes' death ray.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm not convinced aliens were about to attack Earth and then they saw this thing go by and went, oh, they've got high-powered lasers. We better go away. So there's see that little orange speck? That's Josh standing on the roof, and the guys I think are up by the door. The hoist is on the right-hand side of the helicopter. So hoisting is normally done from the right seat. But the wind is coming in this picture straight at you, okay? So you're going to hoist into the wind because wind is your friend. When you're a helicopter pilot, you know you're a helicopter pilot when you go outside and it's broken clouds at 5,000 and 20 knots of wind and 50 degrees and you go, what a gorgeous day. So we're facing into the wind here. Well, Nisro did the hoisting from the left seat because there's nothing to hit on the right. There's a damn building on the left. So we did all the hoisting from the left seat for this evolution. And we got their pictures. We got 4 guys. They're all 4 sort of middle-aged dudes smiling. But we picked up, they weren't our first rescues, but they're probably our first in the city of New Orleans. We picked up a couple people before that. We picked up a woman and her 8-month-old baby. Like she was out of formula. You know, you don't realize how close you are to the edge until something happens and you're stuck. You know, we picked up a dude. If you got a picture, there's an older gentleman with a chainsaw, and he was a retired firefighter, and he just wanted gas for his chainsaw and to get to a place where he could help. And we picked him up out of his house and took him to the firehouse, and he was out, I bet, 10 minutes later cutting up trees because the road to his house was blocked. He couldn't get out of his house. There's a damn tree across the road, and I don't mean the kind of tree that the guy with the chainsaw is going to just pull out of the way, you know. So we picked up those dudes. And so what we were doing is you would pick, there he is, that guy, look at him. He is going to do some stuff. You know what I mean? Like that guy, he is unfazed.
He just needed gas
What a
for his
mensch.
chainsaw, right?
He just needed to get back into it. And I was like,
get back in the fight.
I remember looking at him and thinking, he just had everything destroyed. I mean, I didn't go to his house. We didn't stop, you know, but he just had everything go, and everybody, all his neighbors and all his friends, and he has turned too. And if he can do it, you know,
Right.
then I better be able to cope. So we get there and we pick up the 4 dudes out of the, so there I was getting blinded to death. And we picked these guys up, and what we would do is we would pick them up. Hoist-equipped aircraft would pick people up from the city of New Orleans and go to Lakefront Airport. Now, Lakefront Airport had been just destroyed. It had suffered significant damage. There's water all over the place, and the tower is broken, all that stuff. But the Navy was running non-hoist equipped aircraft to ferry people to, I want to say Baton Rouge. I don't know, to ferry them out of town, to get them out of town. Because a 65 is about the size of a large pickup truck. Honestly, not that large. So we're only picking up 2, 3, 4 people. So you're not sending that. And hoist-equipped aircraft are the limiting reagent. If you remember your chemistry, that's the limiting thing. So we just needed to get people to a place where they could get transferred to a larger aircraft, and then some big iron would take them and get them sort of into the
Back to high ground.
system.
Baton Rouge,
Back to
12
high
feet
ground,
above
back
sea
to-
level.
Yeah. So we picked those guys up. The first couple days were just crazy. All told, we hoisted 48, 49 people. And one thing, I was very lucky. I was very fortunate for a bunch of different reasons. And one everything. I'm always a history buff. We knew early on, Nisro knew early on, this was going to be a big deal. This was going to be historic. Nobody had done this before. So we were very fortunate. We had 2 public affairs specialists, an officer and an enlisted member, at the air station. You had to walk by their office if you wanted to go anywhere. And I was friends with those guys, we worked together. They made sure we always had a camera. We always had a video camera on board because the Coast Guard story is a great story. And I respect my brothers in the DoD services. I do. And I respect what you do. And if you don't have an armed force, you don't have a country. You don't get to have a country unless you can defend its flag. If you are in the Army and you're in your hometown paper, probably something bad happened to you.
Well, you got that right.
Well, if you're in the Coast Guard and you're in the paper, your mom picks up the paper and you're on the front page, you probably did something spectacular. You probably did something. She's going to get 6 copies of that paper and show all her friends. Yeah. So that's our crew. That's me 50 pounds ago, Nisro, Troy, and Josh. Co-pilot, pilot, flight mechanic, rescue swimmer, in order. And that is a section of the sign that says Coast Guard Air Station, Aviation Training Command Mobile, that had been torn apart by the the storm. Yeah,
Wow.
That's a good picture, though.
Yeah. What?
It looks like St. Goo. STGU.
Exactly. When we got there, we went into the ops. Every Coast Guard pilot goes to Mobile once a year for recurring training. You get in the simulator and do the stuff you can't do anywhere else. And so we're all familiar with Mobile. And we got there and we went into the ops space, and there was raw sewage on the ground. Like, it had been destroyed. They were running operations out of the bottom deck of the first floor of Bottoms Hall, the enlisted barracks, because it was a room. It was a room that was dry enough. It was a space that was dry enough and had room. And we had just gone to a computerized flight record system. Nope. We had paper copies, the white sheet, the yellow sheet, the blue sheet, and the pink sheet. And there's operations. Just a bunch of dudes. That's late in the game when we had like computers and power and stuff.
Dry floors.
Power came back to Mobile just a day or two later. So we come back after a second day of flying, and it's hot and we're gross and we're exhausted and we're just in that fatigue. We get back to the hotel. Everything was full. So the hotels out in town were just like, we'll take you. So the first couple nights we're eating MREs, and there's our flight software right there, whiteboards and magnets. We're eating MREs. So we get back to the hotel and the lights are on. And as one voice, we go, reconvene in 30 minutes. We're going out to dinner. We're going to get some real food. We go out so we all run through the shower, cold shower, don't care, jump back in the car. We go out into town. Well, by now the sun has set. It's curfew. We're getting questioned at every intersection. And of course, everything's still closed, dummy. You can't run a restaurant that's been, without power for 4 days. You can't just open up the next day. So we're driving around, nothing. And we're driving back to the hotel. And Troy says, I can't believe I washed behind my nuts for this.
Oh, man. I thought I had a couple good jobs for titles there, but oh, man.
I will forever be thinking of him standing there in the shower going, are we going someplace nice, like wash behind nice, or is it just like, but power's back. So power's back in New Orleans relatively quickly. But we got out there, we were picking up people off the roofs. The thing that broke my brain, or nearly broke my brain, is just the scope of it. The Coast Guard is a retail service. We go out and pick up a dude who thinks he's having a heart attack. Sometimes he is having a heart attack, but we pick up a dude who's been injured. We pick up, I got busted doing rock, paper, scissors for a hoist a few years later to pick up 5 people out of a pleasure boat. We pick up one jet skier who stuck his jet ski in the mud. Like, we're a retail service, and you get to New Orleans and we're all monitoring. Omaha 44 was like, might have been an Air Force, something big overhead. I don't even know. But we're all monitoring a common frequency, and they are just calling out any available aircraft, there are 3 people on the roof of a house and such. Any available aircraft, there are 47 people on top of an elementary school. Any available aircraft, there's a medevac at the Superdome. Any available aircraft. And you have to listen. But it was exactly like that for 8 hours. And
So what was the air traffic density like in that? I had a friend who flew Cobras in the Marines, and he was talking about flying down there. He said his description was as close to a human beehive as you can imagine.
Can we say elbow to asshole? Can we say that on the podcast? Because it wasn't the pattern. And early on there were fewer aircraft. Later on, it got denser and denser. But the thing about New Orleans that stuck with me, and again, I'm not an instructor pilot. I'm a 1,500-hour guy. I barely qualified for a bunch of different things. But the parts that were normally pretty straightforward were really hard. And the parts that were normally really hard were pretty straightforward. Like hoisting over the sea, over the water, the toughest thing I think I ever did as a Coast Guard pilot on the regular was rescue swimmer operations in the open water at night. Because there's crap for visual references. Your choices are have the floodlight on and have some light, or have NVGs and have a horizon. Pick one. You don't get 2 of those. And there's no visual references. The only reference is the sea that you're blowing from hell to breakfast. So, there's just nothing out there. Well, over New Orleans, you're hoisting over land. I mean, all flying is challenging. Hovering a helicopter took me a really long time to learn. Again, caveman lawyer. They can get anybody through this thing. But over land is pretty straightforward. The thing is, making the approach, nothing is underground in New Orleans. There is not a subway. There is not a buried power line. There is not a cable TV line. There isn't buried. They don't even bury the bodies underground in New Orleans.
Right.
Nothing is underground.
That's true.
In New Orleans.
The mausoleum, they're all above ground. Yeah.
You think I'm not telling the truth? I'm an attorney. I don't lie for free, Big. So it's power lines and obstructions and towers just everywhere. And you are constantly just head on a swivel because I don't know how I'm going to get in and out of these places. Do you have the picture of the old guy?
Yes. Yeah. Let me pull him up.
How are we doing for time? I don't want to
We're good. We're at about, I'll look here in a second, but.
You got about 4 seconds left.
Yeah.
I got a question.
Oh, God tried to kill me. Shoot.
So if I recall correctly, addresses and some of the distress calls that were coming in via text message and with a physical road address, which then had to be plugged in the OpSend to Google Earth to be converted into a latitude and a longitude that the helicopters could work with.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I don't know that we ever went to a lat long. We went to some apartment complexes. We went to some points on a map. And I will take a minute. Rather than tell a story about how awesome I am.
5700 Gentilly Boulevard.
So
that's my old home
one
address.
One thing that was amazing to me.
I knew that about
as much as fun as it would be to tell another story about how great I am, camera back on me, is just the seamlessness of operations, because I never saw any of that. I would get a position and a point on a map and a go. That was it. Like, there was a whole organization to put me on target. My dumbass at 50 feet over some apartment complex. How did I get there? I don't know. How did I know there's a person there? I don't know. Not my job. There's some lieutenant at some op center who picked up the phone and did all the work and figured it out. Have we seen this one before? Where is this? Are there people there? And what's the right asset? And sent me, and we went and picked people up. And we picked people up out of apartment complexes, like garden-style apartments off the second floor.
Here's the old guy right here.
We picked that guy up off Route 10, and he tried very hard to kill us all.
He appears to be in his 70s or 80s. He's got an did cannula in his nose.
Did he come on and start thrashing around? Well, because he looks pretty tame in that picture.
Yeah.
He looks distressed.
Yeah, looks like a water buffalo, like he's going to throw your CG off or anything.
He does not look like a water buffalo.
I don't think Kevin's heard the water buffalo story.
I know the water buffalo story out in Sea of Japan.
No, it was
in
Vietnam.
Tam Key.
And
Yeah.
they escorted
Don't
a
pick up
water
a water
buffalo
buffalo.
onto an H-34, and that was fine till about 2,500 feet. And then the water buffalo decided to get up and walk around.
We'll get to Rottweilers in the back of a helicopter in a second. That guy, we went to Route 10 and picked up a group of people, and Nizro was flying. And he did the takeoff, and we flew away. And we dropped off the people. We went back. So what we'd do is we'd get up, get to Air Station Mobile, grab an aircraft, fly to New Orleans, do search and rescue, refuel at New Orleans, belt chase, more search and rescue, refuel at New Orleans, more search and rescue, refuel, go home. Because we have a bag limit. You're only allowed to fly so many hours. And we would drop off the helicopter, give it to another crew, and sometimes literally hand it to land, get out, high five, it's clean, through flight inspection and go. There were, I don't know how many.
Did you leave the
aircraft there.
motors turning, or did you shut
No.
down? Okay.
We shut it down and they do a through flight inspection because we were flying the crap out of these aircraft.
Right.
So the Tupper Wolf is entirely plastic, right? And everything's laminated, everything. I can't remember, 10 or 15 hours, you had to do a tap inspection. Not me, like qualified people, mechanics. Had to tap the tail rotor blades to make sure they weren't delaminating. It's just every 15 hours of flight, tap, 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 tap. We're doing that to make sure you tap, 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 to make sure that the laminate isn't coming apart because, I don't know, I guess that's bad. I'm not a mechanic. We were
it
doing
sounds
this test.
bad.
Yeah, it does. It sounds bad, doesn't it? I don't know. Never had it happen to me, as you can tell by my still being alive. So they were doing this test every day or twice a day because we were flying the crap out of these things. I remember getting back to Mobile. There must have been, I don't know, 50 aircraft down there, 75 Coast Guard aircraft just converged on New Orleans. I remember being on the ramp and seeing 3 helicopters. Nothing was sitting on the ground. Nothing was sitting for maintenance.
Wow.
Nothing was sitting for lack of crew. They were turning and burning. Nothing sat. No piece of equipment sat. And the logistics and the organization to make that happen just broke my brain. Just amazing. I was at New Orleans getting like a sandwich or something. And I overheard 2 guys talking. And they were talking to like the Air National Guard guy or something, because they're talking about fuel bladders, and we can bring a C-130 in and we can put 3 fuel bladders on a C-130 and each one carries this many 100 gallons or whatever. And the guy says, if you get me a runway for 45 minutes, I can bring in a tanker and you'll have all the fuel you'll ever need. And I was like, that's and just to get that going, to get that moving,
Right.
because I don't know how much fuel a jet uses, but it's a hell of a lot more than 2,200 pounds, which is max bag into 65. So,
I think I taxi and use 2,200 pounds, but that's
exactly.
So I've got a really good stat here that I think speaks volumes about what the Coast Guard accomplished in Katrina. So the Coast Guard actually has credit for saving more than 33,500 lives. And they also then helped people in peril that were considered. So these people were not in risk of dying, but were in extremis.
so they were pan, not mayday, mayday, mayday.
Right, exactly. Another 24,135, and medically evacuated 9,409 people for a total that's more than 60,000 people.
Yeah.
That's
So
impressive.
One hoist
There
at a
was
time.
There was a cartoon, a political cartoon that went out because around I think it was actually after Katrina, but so you had the Super Bowl and the Saints went to the Super Bowl, and
Right.
but there was a picture of a Coast Guard helicopter hoisting somebody out of New Orleans, and the caption underneath said, the real New Orleans Saints.
Yeah.
And
I've got that somewhere. I'll send it to you, Pete. Repeat.
Oh, yeah, cool. Yeah.
Yeah, that
We'll
was
get that on the show.
one of the things that and Kevin hit on this, and that's what makes everything work so well for the Coast Guard is our search and rescue controllers. These are the guys in the ops end who are putting together our search patterns, our search plans, and by the time, if we're working a complicated case, we get back and they've already got the next plan or next search for us to do. They know when we're going to run out of gas half the time before we do. And they do. I mean, quite literally, the Coast Guard has written the book on search and rescue.
Right.
And
that's awesome.
those guys, a lot of those guys in Atlantic City were retired coasties, retired station COs. So they would call the boat stations and they'd be like, you need to go look here. Because they knew everything there was to know about Barnegat Inlet, and they'd been in that area for 15 years, and they knew, and it was amazing to watch them work. They're such professionals, and just that's what I mean is there's so much thought and there's so much professionalism and experience and research and work that's gone into putting a rescue basket, next to a person, and everybody says, "Oh, we got to get the pilots." No, you don't understand. Like, I'm a Labrador that happened to get selected for flight school the year that they increased the pipeline and increased the obligated service, so nobody else applied. So they took everybody except like a one-eyed guy and I think a dude who already had his first DUI and was getting out of the service. So, but
No, they took him.
me.
They gave him a waiver.
Sticks is here.
Oh, there you go.
Thanks. Ouch.
So, there's so much professionalism and skill and the amount of research and effort that's going into this. And there's no substitute for that, because we would just be wandering around in the dark, and there's just no way to express how much that means. Now, I will say one thing, which is there's a time in regular SAR, they want you to be off the ground in sort of B30. You want you to be off the ground in 30 minutes. And that's get the call, get the call, check your weather, get the mission, do all the comms, get in the aircraft, pre-flight, start, fly. 30 minutes. So I get back one day from a flight, and I don't remember what was happening, but the search and rescue controller says, I have you off the ground at, I don't know what time, let's say we got the call at 0800. I have you off the ground at 32. And I said, no, we got off the ground at 29. He says, no, I have you at 32. I looked at the clock and I go, well, you're looking at a GSA spec, lowest bidder, subsidized industry, piece of crap government issue clock. And I'm looking at a GPS that if it's off by a second, I'm 186,000 miles out of position. So we're going to go with my clock. And that was the last time we put 29 on the form, and that was the last time we had to talk about that. So,
Nice.
So this guy, this gentleman, and I wish him well. I never met him except that one time, and I wish him well. But we land on I-10. Nisro's flying. He takes off. We drop off a bunch of people, and we go and get gas. That's important. We land back on I-10. And we pick up this gentleman and a couple other people because I-10, this part of I-10 is above the water. So it's like an airport, right? And my plan is I'm just going to go straight up. We're just going to high hover our way right out of this. Because it's New Orleans, so we're surrounded by power lines. And so my plan is to go straight up. Well, we get up to about 30 feet, 39 feet, one rotor disc, right? And that's it. We're done. There's no more up happening with the amount of engine power we have when it's 100 degrees outside and a full tank of gas and we're full of people and there's no wind and nothing.
Yeah, but at least it was humid.
Yeah, exactly. So my next plan my next plan, which I failed to brief, was to accelerate into effective translational lift. Now here's the deal. Helicopters like clean air. Hovering is dirty air because you're in this air that you've been turning over and over again. So what happens is, and this is something I learned at Bob's Roadside Helicopter Academy, you can accelerate right towards the trees and then you hit that clean air. You get to 10 or 15 knots, you hit that clean air and you just suddenly get a lot more power and you jump into the air. Okay, so you're accelerating along the ground at 6 feet off the ground and then bloop, away you go and you take off like a rocket. So that's my plan.
I don't think it's really like a rocket.
North
I just want to tell you both, good luck. We're all counting on you.
Did you say North Korean rocket?
I didn't say nothing. So we're accelerating towards the power lines, and I've failed to brief Nisro or any of the crew on this. And in order, Nisro figures out first, we're not going to make it. Now, I should tell you, when we went down to New Orleans, pilots stayed together as a pair, but flight mechanics and rescue swimmers rotated out. We flew our first day with the flight mechanic and rescue swimmer that we brought, and then all other days we had different crew. Coast Guard standardization is very strong. There were no problems. These guys were great. I'm not going to mention any names because I'm really mad at one of those guys, and I'll tell you why in a second. So we're accelerating towards certain death, and Nizro figures this out significantly before I do. I still think I'm going to pull this out. He goes, no, we're not. He takes the controls and executes a sharp left-hand turn, and we fly, I swear to God, between two light poles. You know what I'm talking about? The street lights that are surprisingly
They
large.
hang over like that.
The hangover like that. They are surprisingly large when they pass through your cockpit window. All right. We fly past this thing. I could have changed the bulb. All right. We have a minute of silent conversation where he says, "You nearly killed us all." And I acknowledge that. We're flying quietly. He's got the controls still. I can't remember. But we're just flying straight and level and not talking, which, by the way, if you're ever air crew, that's a bad sign.
Yes.
Pilots who don't want to talk about themselves, something's going wrong. And after about 45 seconds, the flight mechanic goes, "That was so cool!" And we would have thrown him out of the door. If I had been back there, we'd have float tested that SOB. Oh my God. I have never been so close to wanting to kill a man. So yeah, that old guy, that old gentleman, I wish him well. Apparently he looks like he weighs about $1.25, but apparently substantially more. And so, yeah, so that was that. But that's also the.
Did he come out of the seat? Did he start? Did he try to grab the collective? What do you mean?
No. Just that I tried to kill us. It was not, in fact, his fault. It was my fault that I tried to fly us all into power lines.
The mission that Deuce was flying for this guy.
Okay.
It was actually what led to it. So
What about
Yeah,
Rottweilers?
but I'm still holding him fully responsible.
Yeah.
What about Rottweilers in the back of a helicopter?
So I love dogs, and dogs are important to your mental and emotional health. And I'm not I knew that people weren't going to take dogs in shelters, particularly, and New Orleans, the people we picked up out of New Orleans were the people who wouldn't leave and the people who couldn't leave, either due to health or economic circumstances or whatever. And the reality is, at the end of the month, sometimes people's money gets tight. So they were just stuck. They didn't have whatever.
Yeah.
So we are picking up people out of garden style apartments in not the best economic circumstances. Well, they want to take their dogs. Now, I love dogs. I've got 2 dogs, a main dog and a backup auxiliary dog, to steal a line from Dave Barry. And, they're cute, little, adorable whatevers. But you're in the 9th Ward. These are Rottweilers. Like, these dogs have a job, and the job is to keep people from stealing your stuff. Yeah. So we're like, what are we going to do? And we're talking about it. And because it's no water buffalo, but that's a small helicopter. And the important parts of me are very close to the cargo area. So we talk about it because I don't want to, these are pets. These are people's emotional support. I don't want to tell them, you got to leave your dog. You're not coming back here for a long time. Like, I'm not going to tell you got to abandon your dog. So what we decided is we'll take your dog, but the door's staying open. And if that dog looks at me crosswise, it's going to
learn how to fly.
He's going to learn how to fly. And I can tell you, I'm not a veterinarian. I'm not an animal behavioral specialist. But a 90-pound Rottweiler on a painted metal floor, nothing in evolution has prepared him to go 120 knots, 500 feet over the water. He was as docile as a lamb. We picked up a couple of them, 2 or 3 dogs, and every single one of them was just like, why don't I just sit quietly here and say nothing? Yes, that's a good idea, puppy. Why don't you sit there and say nothing? Because
these were smart dogs.
These were smart. He's not sticking his head out that window. He knows.
Oh, that's
so we
funny.
we didn't have any problems with the dogs. We almost delivered a baby, but no dog problems. So, yeah.
That's amazing.
Oh my gosh, that was a minute. That was a long time ago. I'm not certain my wife knows the story about the power lines. I hope she doesn't listen to this.
Yeah. Just kidding, honey.
Just kidding. Yeah. We came back from New Orleans, and 2 of the senior pilots pulled my wife aside. She came to pick me up from work, and they pulled her aside and said, "Look, man, we don't know what happened down there. Like, keep an eye on him for a couple of days." And she was like, "Hey, you okay?" But yeah, and
All right.
some people did in fact have real struggles. Some people really had some PTSD and some critical stress issues. I fortunately have no emotional capacity, and so I was able to get through it.
Nice.
without any trouble. But,
Well, we're near 90 minutes in, and I'm gonna put you on the spot. And if you don't have one, then we'll move to something else. But I actually have a non-flying, but a Coast Guard lawyer question for you. What is the funniest or strangest or weirdest case you handled as an attorney in the Coast Guard? What's the wildest thing that came across your desk?
oh, I can't believe. Oh, I was not.
I've
So
got one from an investigation that I got tasked with. If you get stuck,
Okay.
Oh,
and you know exactly which one I'm talking about.
so I will tell you this, and then I'll. Well, let's.
I
Dix,
just
why don't you
want
go
names,
ahead?
addresses, dates of birth, Social Security numbers, nothing identifying.
Well, I'll tell you something small, and then I'll let Sticks go, and then I'll tell you something that is just a good thing to end the show on.
Okay,
But-
there we go.
So the Coast Guard is small, so it happens like. There are so few attorneys in the Coast Guard. A few years ago, I went into a training. Like, we got a big conference room at headquarters, and it can be divided into a bunch of small rooms, right? A bunch of medium-sized rooms. I'm going to this training. I walk into the room. I'm a few minutes early. I know. Sticks is like, you early? I'm a few minutes early. There's 10 people in the room, and I don't know any of them. I walk out of the room. This is not the room I'm doing training in, because you can't find 10 Coast Guard attorneys that I don't know. That I don't know at least one of them. You would have to hand pick folks out of the West Coast or whatever. So whenever two coasties meet and you look familiar, you play this little game where you're like, where do I know you from? Were you ever stationed in New Jersey? Well, did you? So
Yeah, that's what Harrier pilots always did.
that's exactly, every small community is this way. I know you from somewhere,
East
right?
Coast or West Coast.
It's the 3 degrees of the Coast Guard. It's not 7 degrees
Absolutely.
of Kevin Bacon, but 3 degrees of the Coast Guard.
So I run into this woman. I can't even remember where I was, but but there I was talking to this woman, and we're playing the old Coasties game. Where do I know you from? Were you ever here? Were you ever in aviation? Did you ever do this? Did you ever do that? And she says, were you ever on the Coast Guard cutter Gallatin? And I know where I know her from. She was a witness in a court martial of this guy who firmly deserves his big
boy.
chicken dinner. Big chicken dinner is a bad conduct discharge. You've been court-martialed and kicked out of the service at 19 years. That's how angry the jury was with him. You don't get a retirement. Goodbye. Thank you for playing. But she was a witness. Wow. And so we kind of go, she says the name of the boat, and I go, oh, and we just turned and walked away.
Enough said.
So I'm guessing she wasn't a witness for the.
She was the witness of the prosecution. And in fact, we chatted a minute. We talked, but it was like, there's some people you meet and you're like, I want to keep in touch with that guy. And there's some people you meet and you're like, we are going to go our separate ways. And I wish her well. She was in fact key. If she ever hears this, she was key to getting the conviction, because nobody believes the first complaining witness. Even though the stuff she was a victim of we did not get, she was key. She was a key part of the prosecution. And I appreciate her, being willing. I mean, it's awful. Like, being a witness in a criminal prosecution when you're the victim is just an awful experience and stressful. And I really appreciate her stepping forward. But let's just say we don't talk. We don't talk. We're not sending Christmas cards back and forth. So yeah. Anyway, Sticks.
So there it was, and I get tasked with an investigation for something, and what it turns out, what happened is there was a small museum that was in one of the towns near our airstay, and they had this very nice painted fiberglass pirate statue, and it got stolen. And then turns out
I would immediately interview the flight deck.
So it turns out I'm going to get this information, and I find out, it turns out that actually one of the members at our air station actually stole this pirate. It was
Hell surprise.
It was bolted to the ground. It's a 6-foot tall fiberglass statue that basically looks like Captain Morgan. And the whole idea that this guy had was to have a Captain Morgan party. So he backs his truck up, throws the pirate, knocks it off of its mounting, throws it in the back of his pickup, drives down the road, puts it in his apartment, and a day or so later orders pizza. And there was a big newspaper story about this fiberglass statue that got stolen. And the pizza delivery guy
Pizza delivery boy
sees the statue or sees the fiberglass, and he's like, oh, so he puts one and one together. Well, the fiberglass statue is like completely damaged, and now I have to figure out. And the museum is telling me it's a one of a kind thing. This is where are we going to get a new one of these, and how are you going to replace this? So, I'm just going to deal with this next week, taking a long weekend with the family. I go down to, I think we're down to North Carolina or somewhere, and walk into a restaurant, and there in front of me is a 6-foot-tall fiberglass pirate statue that is exactly the same as the one that was stolen. And I'm like, all right, so how one of a kind is this thing? And then we sit down and I look at the restaurant, or looking at the history of the restaurant, and the restaurant burned down. And so and I see a note in here, all of the furnishings have been replaced. So they're all brand new. So now I'm going, all right, now I feel really dumb. Google's kind of new. So I go and throw in 6-foot-tall fiberglass statue pirate. And there, lo and behold, is you can order to the tune of probably around $3,000 or $4,000 a brand new pirate fiberglass statue. So I come back, Monday or Tuesday, and I walk in and I've got my whole investigation closed. All right, here's our plan. You're buying a new fiberglass pirate for the museum. And hey, here's the bill. Here's where you can order it. And the CO's got my back on this too. So
nice. So they got their one of a kind statue back. The guy got off for a few $1,000s instead of a court martial.
Right.
Somewhere there's a Coast Guard mutual assistance loan application that I really want to see. Why do you need $4,000 plus shipping on an emergency basis?
I thought you were gonna I thought you were gonna say I'm on my way out the station to go do this investigation, and I walk by this 6-foot-tall fiberglass pirate in the entry.
Yeah, no, that's
oh my goodness gracious.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Well, thank you, Deuce, because I feel like I've done a core workout.
Absolutely.
Because I've laughed so much, and I probably needed that. Really.
There was not an ops briefing that I would go to where Deuce was there that everybody was not leaving laughing their butt off because of some, and he would just random comment here or there, and he'd kill you. So.
That's beautiful.
Oh, that's a great.
Well, thank you indeed. Yeah, that was. Thank you for your service, both of you, Sticks. Well, all three of you, Sticks and Fig and Deuce. Thank you for your service. Thanks for coming on and spending some time together here. This has been awesome. Lots of folks watching on Rumble over at sotherewas.us/Rumble, over on YouTube. That's a long, complex one. I'm going to have to get a YouTube forward. I will do that soon. And then even on Facebook. So we appreciate all the folks that are joining us during the live recording session. And so when you hear us talking about the pictures and you're listening to the audio only, I will try to embed them at the appropriate place in your podcast catcher, like, say, for instance, on the iPhone podcasts or Overcast, something like that. You should be able to see the photos as I stick them into the show. But that's the plan anyway. Got a couple other thank yous we got to head out there. First of all, if you are watching the live stream and you see a beautiful orange sunset and an Aviate-B Harrier, that photo was taken by none other than Brad Silcott at BDS, Bravo Delta Sierra, aviationphotography.com. Some amazing photos, and he's allowing us to use them on our website. We really appreciate that. Can't tell you how much we do. Let's see. Let's also thank two of our newest patrons, Patreon pilots. One, we busted his chops last week about his name, and then I completely forgot to honor. Yeah, Master. He wrote in, and he is donating to the show in honor of his son, Lieutenant Tom Bates, United States Air Force, who is a FAPE, first assignment instructor pilot at Randolph Air Force Base. Tough duty, but someone's got to do it. Randolph, are you allowed to go back to Randolph, Fig?
I've been banned from the base.
Yeah. Put your fake mustache on, you'll be fine.
The good news is his picture's in all the post offices.
That's exactly right.
I can't go to Barksdale Air Force Base, and I can't go to Randolph.
I hate when that happens. And additionally, he also did it in honor of his father, who recently passed. And that was Staff Sergeant. I'm looking for the name here. Here we are. Staff Sergeant Rick Bates, who was with the 47th Bombardment Wing in the United States Air Force in Europe. So thank you to him for his service. We honor that, and we're grateful for that generation.
That's outstanding.
Yeah, indeed. And thank you to our other pilot Patreon supporter this week is Patrick McLeod. Thank you for stepping up, Patrick. Someone comes up with a call sign for McLeod, let me know. I don't know. Heavy.
I got one, but I'm not going to say it.
Oh. Wimp.
We'll say it offline. I don't
There
want
you go.
I
Maybe
like
we'll put it in the
Thank
intro.
you, Patrick. I'm not going to do it to you because the gut. It just as soon as I heard it, I went, oh. I don't exercise control very often, but I am right now.
Yeah, I'm shocked, I tell you, that Fig has exercised personal control here, right? Oh, my goodness. We've got a merch store up there. I've been drinking out of my beer glass all evening here. So, yeah.
Nice.
Some other good
Is that
stuff. You get
smoked?
a hat, a T-shirt, the shirt I'm wearing.
Yeah.
What's your favorite item on the store there, Fig?
The bikini.
Right.
I got
Fig.
my wife and my girlfriend. One.
There you go. That Sticks did too.
Just don't let them meet.
They're not ever going to meet.
Wives and girlfriends, man. Yeah.
Right on. So we've
don't
only
know,
got
like-
two, folks. Here's what I want you to do: take a picture of whatever location that you may be listening to our show in, and send it to us, and we'll get it up on the website. Make yourself famous.
Yeah.
So so send us
We
photos
had some guys who listen to the podcast on Mount Fuji.
up on the
Took a
top of
picture
Mount
from
Fuji.
top of Mount Fuji.
That's awesome. So send us one from wherever you might be listening to the show. But more importantly, share the show. Put it up on Facebook. Put it up on Twitter. Yeah, LinkedIn, wherever it is. Give us a link to our show. Share it. Tell your family. Tell your friends. We're growing. We're growing like crazy, and we appreciate all your help. But keep sharing, because that helps us keep the engines running and bringing the show back to you. And visit our sponsors. If you are in need of something, this week was HelloFresh. Go give them a listen there, or go give them a look-see there at HelloFresh.com/50. So there I was. And get that, take advantage of that discount. Man, I'm loving that. Finally, rate us, well, not finally, but for action for you to do, need you to go to podcasts on Apple, iPhone, and iPad and give us a 5-star rating. Count them 5. Not 4, not 3. That's for other shows.
We want 5.
We only want 5 stars. And give us a nice review. We just cracked 100 reviews, I believe. All good. Not a negative one in the bunch, because I'm able to delete those. Just kidding.
Control the
Just
narrative.
kidding. If only I could. No, can't delete the negative ones either. But no, please give us some good ratings. Then we got to get some thank yous out there. Fig, any you can think of?
Yes. That right there. Wait a minute. Yes.
That's not
It's
one.
It's the two, as in dos,
Those
guys, gringos, that make the Air Force sound good. The Dos Gringos. Thanks for letting us use your music, and what
And
great
thanks for your
it is.
music.
Yeah, thanks for your music. I
It
laugh,
is-
listen to it all the time.
It's great stuff.
And you
And
don't
then
have to
how
hear
about my
words
man-
to
And over at
appreciate it.
Backbeat Media, who
Dave Hamel.
gives us all our sponsors and takes good care of us. He's got the Mac Geek Gab, the Gig Gab, and the Business Brain, and a bunch of other great shows sponsored and hosted by Backbeat Media, as are we.
Thanks, Dave.
Indeed. So be well. Well, I think we're not outnumbered, but we're at least evenly matched here. So some advice till next week. Maybe you have some there, Sticks.
Oh, yeah. Don't let go of the collective.
Don't do it.
Don't do it.
Your mic.
Yeah.
Your mic.
Yeah. Man.
Don't sit on the ejection
There I
seat.
was,
Damn it.
crossing the pond, and you could see that I wasn't exactly fond of all the shit I was wearing on that day. Now an F-16 is cramped enough, but it's even worse with all that stuff supposed to save your life. But we we knew there was no way. 'Cause when you're going down the North Atlantic, man, it's over.
Hey, what'd he say?
He said it's over.
It's over.
Okay, that's a lawsuit.
Counselor, we may
And
need you.
we're out. Okay, we're still live to everybody out there on YouTube, but that's where I'm going to cut the show off. So that was absolutely a blast. Thank you,
Thanks,
Deuce, so
Deuce.
much for joining us.
That was a
I
fun.
am
And thanks for bringing him on, Sticks.
Oh, no problem. Deuce, I cannot say thank you enough. It was because I know this was a bit of a reach for you. You kind of were like, I don't know. I mean, there's some legends out there, but you have a fantastic story. And I will also tell you in front of these two guys and everybody else on YouTube that there was not a day that I went into the air station that when I looked at the schedule and if you and I were paired up, I knew it was going to be a good day. So
Nice.
Yeah, those
So-
are good days.
If only Fig could say that about me, but nope.
That's not true.
So I'm going to tell you something that Styx doesn't even know. The number of times I sat in his car without him, more than you would expect. We
Oh,
both
boy.
had
Was Ann there or not? I'm
1996 No. We both had late 90s green Saturns. And I would walk out of the air station after a long night, get in the car, and be like, that's a different car seat than mine. This is a stick shift, and I'm pretty sure mine's an automatic.
Oh,
It's that kind of situational awareness. If you ever
About
got in
a
your
year
car and
ago,
thought,
I
this
walked-
smells like manicotti, that was me. Sorry about that.
There you go. About a year ago, I walked out of training at work, and I walked out. I've got a 2010 Civic, silver Civic. Walk up to the car, and I look at it, and I go, son of a bitch, somebody hit my car. God damn it. Was it a note? Oh, damn it. I started looking at it, and then my key wouldn't work. I'm like, what the hell's the matter? It was someone else's crappy 2010 Honda Civic. Like, oh, thank God.
Those Saturns are so cheap, I wouldn't be surprised if my key had worked. Sticks comes out, dude, where's my car? Just take mine home.
Well, it was
Change your
interesting.
radio stations.
If you recall the story that I told with the engine and the coolant, it was the Saturn. That was the car that ended up with the engine or the oil and the coolant. So,
Yep. Beautiful.
I had one of those. It would go 60 or it would go 10, but if you went 30 for any length of time, the engine would overheat.
Okay, so yeah, so Trixity, and I missed it. If watching on YouTube, asked, and I can't believe we missed it. Well, okay, I know how we missed it. So it's just a play on his name. He asked, "How did you get your call sign?" And Deuce is a play on your last name. It's just that
Correct.
part of his last name is DEUS. So
I like it because it's the deuce is the lowest card in the deck, right?
you
And
go.
you remember I hear that like you want to be underestimated, and so I like it. I heard that and I went, I'll take that. Jag was big at the time, but I didn't want harm. Like I thought, ugh.
yeah.
Harm,
That
yeah, that's
that would have been the natural, but yeah.
yeah.
And Sticks, you're a
Hockey sticks.
But no, actually, no. So it wasn't even that. I was
H-E
double hockey sticks.
Double
Yeah.
hockey sticks.
So I was, yes, it was the PAO, and I was on the phone, and to be like, hey, my name, I'm going to use my regular name. I don't really care because I'm actually, what I do now, everybody kind of knows who I am. But, I'll say I'm John Hall, and they would say, John Paul? No, John Hall. HA double hockey sticks.
I'm not the Pope.
And and I'm trying to remember who it was. I want to
you're my
say
son.
it
My
was,
father
if you
be your father at Domino's.
if you remember our one of our co-pilot or one of our pilots there whose nickname was Cans because he ran out of gas before he got back to the air station, walks past my desk and goes, "You're such a dork. We're calling you Sticks now." So that's how that came about.
It could
So,
always be worse, man. Always.
Why?
Yeah.
Why is it some of the better stories involve some of the people you're just like 3,000 great people and 3 dipsticks? It's always those guys.
yeah.
Oh my
Repeat,
God.
we need a title.
We've got a bunch of good ones here. No doubt about it. Let me. Here's what I have written down, and just to be clear, I didn't even start writing until mid-show, but I've got a lawnmower with a really good windscreen.
I wrote that down too.
Okay. Lipstick on a pig. I think actually this one may be pretty good because of what it is, and I can put the photo up. St. Goo.
St. Goo.
ST and GU, right? It's the Coast Guard sign.
On the sign from
sign that says St. Goo.
St. Goo,
Yeah.
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 I can't believe I washed behind my nuts
for this. Although that's going to be hard getting on Facebook.
I can't believe I washed behind my blank for this.
Yeah, there you go.
I can't believe
That's not better. That's not better. Oh well, we've cleared this. Oh, that makes it
okay.
Schools.
I can't believe
We
I washed
almost delivered a baby.
Yep. From hell to breakfast, almost delivered a baby.
We didn't even get to that one.
Caveman lawyer. I don't lie for free.
free. I think that one's it.
Yeah.
I like that one too. I like that one.
Between two light poles, and I could have changed the bulb.
Yeah. Ooh, we're gonna discuss that Thursday night.
Well, hey,
after
you
bedtime.
and I probably need to record a intro
We do.
before we sign off because I'm flying for the next 3 days.
Yeah, I'm beat. And and I've got to publish this tomorrow. So, all right.
so
well,
let's-
here's what we'll do. I'm gonna end the broadcast.
Hey, we
And
should
then
do
I'll
the
recreate
intro.
a new
we should do
studio
the
for us.
intro with them on it.
We could
What
do
you
that.
think?
Yeah.
Maybe like a quick party for
We could
1
do that.
minute.
Yeah. Well,
I got
okay.
nothing going on.
Let's do this. So I'll pull it off the very end then. All right. Well, I'll just keep the recording going. We're out live on YouTube, and everybody in the whole world is going to see this, hear this, and all that. So let's keep it as tight as we can. And there we go. I'm going to pull up my announcements because we do need to mention the sponsor. And
Hello, Fresh.
yes,
Hello, Fresh.
yeah.
I
love that.
Better than getting busted by the Domino's guy with the
Right.
illegal statue in your apartment.
Oh my gosh. It was a one of a kind 6-foot fiberglass pirate statue
statue. Yeah.
that you can get anywhere.
Limited run of 10,000. This broadcast comes free with a door off a helicopter.
They fall off all
Right.
the time and fly just fine.
Right. All right, I'm just
I'm
writing
sorry,
down a
we're-
couple
we're
notes for
working.
the things I have to mention. So, all right, let's see.
Look,
This
the
is
guy
going to be
shut up and
episode
let the man do
68
his thing.
or 67. Oh, wait a minute. We're at 68 now.
I missed being episode 69.
Yep.
12 years old. I
You
missed it. God.
Son of a bad word. Yeah.
God.
This is 68.
Yep,
Yeah.
68. All right.
Can I come back next week?
There you go. Always, anytime. I'm thinking you might have another story or two up your sleeve.
Oh my gosh. I got busted doing rock, paper, scissors for a hoist. It was not the most professional flying moment of my career.
There you go. All right. Let me get my notes, and here we go. Intro coming in 3, 2, 1. Welcome. You're listening to the podcast, So There I Was. This is episode number 68. What's the title of this one, Fig?
I don't remember what we decided.
All right. Here we go. We'll have to do it again. Caveman lawyer, I don't lie for free.
Caveman lawyer or life for free. Okay.
I am a caveman lawyer. I don't lie for free. All right.
Okay, sorry.
Greetings. You're listening to the podcast. So there I was. That's how all great aviation tales begin. This is episode 68. Do you remember the title of this one, Fig?
As a matter of fact, I do.
Okay.
Oh, you want me to say it?
Yeah, if you
This
do.
time.
Yeah.
I'm a caveman lawyer. I don't lie for free.
Right on. Exactly. I think this may be our first attorney slash
No,
pilot.
wait a minute.
Do we have another attorney on?
Well, he wasn't an attorney at the time, but he became an attorney after Vietnam.
That's right. That's right. Gunny.
Hey, I wasn't
Gunny
a
was
son of a
good.
bitch at the time.
The marital status of your parents was never in question. So there he is here with us. That's Deuce. Sponsors for this week episode is HelloFresh/50. So there I was.us. We'll talk more about that during the show. But if you use 50, so there I was.us as your code, you'll get 50% off your first meals and free shipping. Really cool deal. We're going to talk more about that during the show. But we had some great stories, including how he went from attorney to suspect almost instantly one night.
Yeah, that's a good story. That is a really good story. What was it?
Deuce, what were you thinking?
You know, sometimes you just need to break into your house with a 3-pound sledgehammer and a Hello Kitty umbrella. What? Don't you do that?
Not that I'm willing to admit to in public.
It's a good story. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my
Sticks
God.
and Deuce flew together in the Coast Guard, so they were here to bounce things off of each other. Absolutely.
Yes, we did.
You know where he learned? Hey, you know where he learned how to fly helicopters? Bob's Helicopter School, Long Beach, Mississippi. Another great
Bob's
story.
roadside helicopter.
Bob's roadside helicopter.
You've never been to ground school until you've done it as a drive-through.
Right. So down in Louisiana, Mississippi, they have drive-through beer barns, but I guess they have drive-through helicopter schools as well.
Listen, folks, this is a preview of what kind of an ab workout this interview is.
This is how it went.
Yeah.
I think we should get out of the way. Let this thing happen. Oh, before we do, I'm sorry, I'll say that again here in a minute. We have to thank 2 new Patreon sponsors. First of all is we thanked him last week, but we didn't get the honors in. It was Steve Bates. His son is Lieutenant Tom Bates, who's a first assignment instructor pilot at Randolph, and his father recently passed, was a Korean War vet. He was with the United States Air Force 47th Bombardment Wing. His name was Staff Sergeant Rick Bates. So thank you to your service, and we honor that, sir. And
Yes, thank you so much.
You're here.
indeed. So thank you also to Patrick McLight, who is a new Patreon pilot sponsor. And a quick reminder, we've got a merch store, so there I was.us/merch. We've got a glossary. If you have any questions of all the acronyms that we bounce off of you during the show, go there. If it isn't there, write to us and we'll get it on there. Please share the show. Put it up on Facebook. Put it up on Twitter. Put it up on LinkedIn. Anywhere that you have fun with friends, put our show up there. Please share the show. That's all we're asking.
Come on.
And while you're doing that, give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts. It doesn't take that long. And if you want to give us a 4-star rating, give us the extra star. Tell us what we did wrong, and we'll make it better next week. We promise.
Yeah.
We promise.
Yeah.
Better looking hosts.
All I have to do is put that gauze filter on my screen, and I'll be good. Hey, it is an audio podcast. We are gorgeous. We look marvelous.
We got voices for radio.
There you go. We got faces for radio, that's for sure.
Let it rip. Let her
Hey,
rip.
these guys look a lot better with an oxygen mask on.
There you go.
One last thing, we want questions. If you have questions about getting into flying, aviation, or anything like that, please send them to sticks@sothereiwas.us.
There you go. And if you send them to repeat at sothereiwas.us or fig@sothereiwas.us, we're going to forward them to Sticks, and he'll answer them. That's how we roll. Okay, let's try that advice again and get out of the way. What do you say till next week?
Don't
Don't.
let go of the collective.
Don't let go.
Of the
Don't do
collective.
And whatever else you do, don't sit on the collective. Here comes Deuce, guys. And we're done. All right. I can edit that. All right, everybody. We need to blast off.
Thanks,
I'm going to
Deuce.
end the podcast. Say goodnight to everybody on YouTube, Rumble, and Facebook. Thank
Good night,
you.
everybody.
Be well. God bless. Stay safe.
Deuce, thanks.
Thank you.
Sorry about the audio problems.
Thank you, Deuce.